All right, we're going to get everything underway here. Class number 1, we invite you to start making your way over to the Ford F-150 EcoBoost show ring. You are numbers 204, 208, 248, 216, 238, 244, 212, and 225. That is class number 1. Please start making your way to the Ford F-150 EcoBoost show arena. So we'll call these in and then the same type of deal.
Yeah, Shelby said when you call them in, though, just read the tag numbers. And then at the end, when you're doing results, then you can say the names.
Okay.
That's what she told me.
Is that just for this show or for the rest of the week?
No, just for the junior fed.
Okay. Doki, doki. You think they could get us lazy boy recliners to sit in?
I wish.
Yeah.
We should.
With a blanket and slippers.
Then we'd be falling asleep. I would be. It's been a long day.
Yes, it has. She's going to be here till Johnny comes marching home. While our first class is making their way to the show arena, I want to introduce to you your judge for today for our Junior Fed show, Marcus Arnold. Marcus grew up on a small family-owned cattle and show pig operation in the panhandle of Texas. He attended Clarendon College, where he was a member of their nationally recognized livestock judging team. As a junior college All-American, he attended Texas Tech, where he received his bachelor's degree in animal science and was on the record-setting national champion livestock judging team in 2008. He was also a member of the 2008 national champion meat animal evaluation team. Upon graduation from Texas Tech, he attended Colorado State and earned a master's degree in animal nutrition while assisting in coaching the livestock judging team. After the completion of his master's degree, Marcus served as the livestock judging coach at West Texas A&M University and Butler Community College. During his time at Butler, he served as a department head, assistant professor, and livestock judging coach since 2013. He was recently named the 2016-17 Junior College Coach of the Year, and as of June, Marcus accepted a position as an Associate Strategic Account Manager and Feed Specialist from Zoetis. So a more qualified individual you will not find. Marcus, we are glad to have you here today, and we want to encourage into the arena now class number 1 from our Junior Fed Market Steer division. They are tags 204, 208, 248, 216, 238, 244, 212, and 225. In an effort to move this show on in an efficient manner, I'm going to read you the on deck. The on deck class as well. Number 2, you're going to be on deck. That is 209, 239, 207, 211, 210, and 221. 209, 239, 207, 211, 210, and 221. You are on deck.
Everything's different. I feel like my iPad and my iPad earlier, that was different order than that. Then when I do all three. Yeah. That's like me too. Yeah.
What's going on that we aren't having shit going on here?
He did the sheets then too? Oh, okay. Okay. For the junior feds. Fairfield. Oh, you're from Montana? Yeah. Yeah. Where you going to school at? MSU. Okay, and you do it at both? Yeah. Oh, and you're sitting down here today. Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Even Judge, he's from Texas usually. This is just man. More Midwestern.
Had you met have you met the judge before?
I'm sorry.
Had you met the judge before just now?
Not today. No, no. I've never ever met him.
He's very nice. He's from Iowa, and he's just a very nice guy. You read all his bio and everything on
I
the
just
book.
did, yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty nice. He's doing all the judging. He's done all the judging.
Aha. His bio reads pretty heavy.
Yeah, he does. For a young guy.
Yeah. All right, again, this is class number 1. The tags are 204, 208, 248, 216, 238, 244, 212, and 225. While Marcus is taking an ID and surveying this great pin of cattle we've got here, I need to pay a couple of bills. First, we want to thank the local Montana Ford store. They're the sponsor of the F-150 EcoBoost Arena. You want to stop by your local Montana Ford store and check out the new Ford Super Duty trucks. Fuel efficient, capable, durable. Super Duty is more than just a name. It represents a long-standing tradition of trucks that are built Ford tough. Drive one today at your local Montana Ford store. And Phillips 66 is excited to partner with the NILE to serve the community in which we live and work. Phillips 66, we support educational programs that develop skill critical to advancing energy solutions, including competence in science, technology, engineering, and math. We proudly support the NILE 4th grade ag education and junior fed shows, teaching today's ag youth to be leaders of tomorrow. And a thank you to the Northwest Farm Credit Services and all the folks at Northwest Farm Credit for their support of the NILE and the Junior Fed Show. They are a sponsor of the prizes today for our show, so thank you to Northwest Farm Credit Services and Town & Country Supply, a proud sponsor of the Buckles today. Thanks to Wes Burley and the folks at Town & Country. Check out their booth in the exhibit hall. Got everything from farm supplies to Western clothing. That is Town & Country Supply. First Interstate Bank is a sponsor today of the prizes to the Junior Fed winners. First Interstate Bank, located throughout Montana, Wyoming, and western South Dakota, committed to making our communities a better place to live and work. And last but not least, Cinch Apparel. They are proud to be a sponsor of the NILE Junior Fed shows as well. NILE Junior Fed champions will receive cinch jackets. Junior Fed champions wearing cinch apparel in the show ring will also receive a cinch to win $100 bonus. Also, if you are out there, if you've got somebody that's near and dear to you that wishes they were here but can't be, give them a call and let them know they can watch the whole show tonight and all week long. You can go one of two ways. You can go to YouTube and then search Superior Prod. That is Superior and then PROD. Otherwise, you can just go to liveauctions.tv and you can watch everything that happens in the Ford F-150 EcoBoost Show Arena anywhere throughout the universe. You'll also notice in the arena some of the great photographers from Legacy Livestock Imaging. If you didn't notice, they are set up in the building just kitty corner across from me. They've got a booth over there. They've got all kinds of cool stuff over there, and they're getting shots of everything that happens in both show arenas all week long. You can check it out like this. Go to www.legacylivestockimaging.com. Then the second step is to find the folder that contains your images, and these shows are organized year by year and by show. You can order, print, get digital downloads and gifts, whatever the need may be. They can get it handled for you at Legacy Livestock Imaging. They are the best in the business, and we are happy to have them with us in Billings this week at the NILE.
Well, I apologize for maybe taking a little bit more time on this first class, but first and foremost, it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to be here this afternoon with you and to get to work with your young people and sort through your cattle show. If this is any indication of what we're going to have yet to come afterwards, we're in for a real treat because these top two are ultra special. I think both of them are a little bit different. Both of them have a great deal of quality, and there's a lot of give and take within this respective pair because there's so much more different. I went back and forth on the pair and then landed on the young man up there in the front with the blaze face steer. I really think this steer is just so much fresher up front in terms of his neck and how his neck comes into his shoulder. I think a steer that balances up really well as you get off the side of him. I particularly like how he squared back to his pin set, yet more impressive within this respective pair. If you get right in behind him and get your hands on him, there's a considerable amount of just muscularity difference within that respective pair. The young man steer that we lead off with is so big backed, he's so fresh topped, by far and away the heaviest muscled steer. As we get him out on the go, I'd like to set his rear leg down maybe just a touch more comfortable. He gets a notch straighter in his hock, perhaps more than I would prefer, but a lot of quality in that guy. Young man steer here coming in second, but I like a lot of things about this steer. He's really moderate, he's really big-bodied, he's really burly-legged. I think a steer that, as he gets out on the go, uses his hip and hind leg maybe a touch more favorable than the steer that we lead off with. I think that steer gets a touch plainer up through his front end. I think a steer that, as we get right in behind him and on more comparative discussion, that steer gets plainer in the shape to his back. He's not quite as stout. He's not quite as expressive, and as you get him out on the go, he wants to drop his pins just ever so slightly, but a really impressive pair of cattle there between 1 and 2. My compliments to those exhibitors. Not to take anything away from the young lady steer that's coming in third. A lot of things I like about him. He's big-hipped, he's muscular, he's fresh. I think a steer that offers a lot of performance and weight. With that, I think a steer that could use maybe a touch more depth of body back into the rear third of his flank. I think a steer that still on an individual basis needs to be loosened up on his rear wheels to work him up around that really competitive pair that we had up top. Young man here that comes in fourth, another steer that has a lot of muscle and a lot of shape into him. I guess for me, maybe a lighter weight steer that reads just a touch flatter in regards to his body and his forerib shape. He's ultra deep. Maybe just like to just give him just a touch more turn there in terms of his forerib and his body shape. More importantly, I tone down his tail head, set him down a notch more comfortable as he gets out on the go. The black and white steer coming in next, just a big performance type of calf. I think a steer that has a lot of bone. He's more flexible out of his rear leg than the steer in front of him, but as we get off the side of him, I think he loses out on maybe some of the quality that we see in some of those other cattle. Maybe like to clean him up in his chest, deepen him back down into his flank, but a really nice type of steer that the young man brings us. Young lady here that comes in next, I think a steer that's fitted up really well. I think a steer on the standstill could give you some good looks. I think a steer that's just really immature in regards to his body, has more of a prospect body still in him, doesn't look quite like a fat steer today. Like to just give him a shot more rib, loosen him up in his top, set him down better in his rear leg. Big, deep ribbed, practical steer here coming in next. I think one that you really appreciate in terms of his depth of rib, and compositionally he does have more on him than the young lady steer that just talked about. I guess for me, as we get this steer out on the go, just gets a little bit too timid and tight on his rear wheels. Like to set him down maybe just a touch more comfortable. And when we close out the class with a really deep rib type of steer, again, another steer that's really mellow to the touch. Just like to see him with a touch more quality and just give him a touch more structural soundness as well. A really good class, especially those two up top. Those of you ringside, help me in congratulating those exhibitors.
Boy, what a fantastic start to the steer show right there. Here's your top 5. Finishing 5th is Bo Richard of Cody, Wyoming. In the number 4 spot, Tegan Bauma of Stevensville, Montana, number 204. Finishing 3rd, tag number 225, Emily Matamoros of Dillon, Montana. In the 2nd spot, tag number 212, Hello, New York, Caden Franklin of Meeker, Colorado. And finishing at the top of the class, congratulations from Geyser, Montana, Quentin Harwood, tag number 216. With that, we will welcome to the Ford EcoBoost Show Arena, class number 2. They are tags 209, 239, 207, 211, 210, and 221. And as they are making their way into the ring, I want to give a shout out to Select Sires. Select Sires is offering an expanded sire lineup that includes more elite bulls from respected programs. Select Sires, calving ease, carcass, and cows. Stop by and see Jane Nansel at their booth in the trade show or visit your local Select Sire representative. And Pine Coulee Bulls as well. Pine Coulee, bulls bred and tested for convenience, efficiency, and profit traits. Pine Coulee Bulls sale will be March 12th of 2018 at the Wagon Box Ranch in Hardin, Montana. This year, selling 180 bulls, 155 yearling and coming 2-year-olds. Thank you to Jim Stampville and John Carroll.
as we work our way here into the second class, I really think both of these cattle are really pretty neat. Both of them are completely different, I'll give you that. But I think both of these cattle offer a great deal of quality. It's personal preference, honestly, and I think maybe a different guy could step in and do it a little bit different. But for me, it's the unique combination of a touch more power and hip and hind leg set, and a steer that gets out on the go considerably more comfortable in the young man's black steer. Aside from those things, I think a steer that balances up really well, a fresher fronted steer that is really attractive in his hip and his hind leg set. He may be not the most just opened up in terms of his chest, and he may not be the most massive bodied steer, especially back into his flank, but I think that steer paints just a really good silhouette of balance. Hip and hind leg set is ultra attractive, and as we get the more powerful steer out on the move, he's by far and away more comfortable. That's not to discredit the young lady's yellow steer here coming in second. I think ultra big bodied steer, one that is really just fat steer-like in terms of his body, and I love those things about him. I think a steer that still has a great deal of muscle in his own right. I think in a comparative discussion, a plainer fronted steer that as we get him out on the go, he wants to get just a touch shorter in regards to his hip structure. He wants to get tighter in terms of his hock, doesn't sit down as pastern, maybe quite as comfortable. I'd like to loosen that steer up. If we make that steer more mobile and give him a shot more look up through his front end, that pair might get a little bit more competitive for me. Young lady steer here coming in next. I think this is just a good type of steer. This one is probably a touch more youthful fronted than the steer that we just talked about. I think this steer can give you just a longer bodied look from the side. I think a steer as well that bounces up on the standstill really well. Hip and hind leg set for me just gets a little bit plain. I'd like to stouten him up in terms of his bone work. I'd like to give him a shot more power in comparison to the two cattle that we see directly in front of that one. But that's a really nice steer there that the young lady brings us. Young man steer here coming in 4. I think a steer that has some shape and some dimension as we get in behind him. On the standstill, I think a steer that could give you some look. He's presented really nicely. Just gets a touch too tight in his rear leg and his hock. Need to loosen him up and maybe in comparison give him just a touch more power up high. Young man steer coming in next, maybe the bigger and heavier weight option of that respective pair. I think a steer that's mellower to the touch, and there's no question about it. I think a steer that needs to be just altered in his rear leg usage. I'd like to just give him a shot more power and freshness right up or right down his top. We close out here with a steer that is really moderate in regards to his size, a flatter bodied steer that just needs to be more opened up. I'd like to give him a shot more muscle on an individual basis, but a really, really good class. Those of you ringside, put your hands together for each of those exhibitors.
Again, an excellent class right there. Congratulations to your top 5. Finishing 5th is going to be tag number 207. That is Jake Cook of Huntley, Montana. In the 4 position, Austin Schuett. He is number 239 from Dillon, Montana. Finishing 3rd right there, Abby Leachman from Toston, Montana. She was number 221. Number 210, Lexi Dietz of Shepherd, Montana, finishes 2nd, and finishing at the top of the class, congratulations, number 211, Cody Foley of Cheyenne, Wyoming. Moving right away into class number 3, welcome to the Ford EcoBoost Show Arena. Tags 246, 229, 242, 240, 215, 227, 226. And while they're making their way into the show ring, I want to give a shout out on a personal basis to the Northern Ag Network. Northern Ag Network bringing you the latest in ag news, markets, and weather. Russell Nimitz and Lade Nordland along with Ed McIntosh and the weather, the powerful voice of the West, as close as your nearest radio dial, or you can go online to www.northernag.net. And like I said, on a personal basis, I want to thank the Northern Ag Network for having me here for their 50th anniversary to be the voice of the Nile for 2017.
Well, as we work our way here into this third class, I definitely think there's a lot of variation amongst type and kind within this respective group, and maybe not the standout pair that we've had in the first or the second class, but I think fundamentally a pair of cattle that still read really correct. I think we start with the Baldy steer here for me, a steer that bounces up maybe just a little bit better than the steer right in behind him in second. I think a steer that, although he's still pretty straight in regards to his hock, he might be a touch better in regards to his foot and maybe his rear leg usage than the steer that we have directly in second, but I like his added freshness. I think compositionally he's right on target where he needs to be. Hip forward, there's some things you could really tie into that guy. I think just the most fundamental place to start, a nice steer that leads off. Not to take anything away from the black steer here in second. Ultra big bodied. I think a steer that has an abundance of muscle. I think you get him behind him, he might be the power steer of the class, and I definitely like his added performance and his weight. I'd just like to piece them together, maybe just a little bit different from the side. I think that steer gets just a touch more mature through his front end and sets his chest out maybe just a touch deeper, but as that steer gets out on the go, his shoulder reads maybe a touch straighter, and then I'd like to set him down just more comfortable in his rear leg on an individual basis, but that's a nice pair of cattle there in 1 and 2. You guys can go ahead and circle around and lead those out. Young lady steer here that comes in third. I think if you're just studying just quality and look of balance, this might be your pick within that respective class, and I wouldn't disagree with you at all. This steer is by far and away the best looking steer. This steer offers the most quality. Why don't we use him? Probably because he's not quite there yet from a compositional standpoint. I think a steer that needs more on him in terms of finish, and as we get right in behind that steer, for me, he needs to be considerably stouter out of his hip and down through his lower quarter, just not in the same amount of muscle that we see in those two other cattle, but a really good, high quality, good looking type of steer. Young lady steer coming in fourth. I think a steer that offers more muscularity. I think you get him behind him. He's got a big back and he's thick-ended. As you get off the side of this steer, I think a steer that just doesn't piece together maybe quite as well. Certainly like just to give him a more attractive set to his hip and his hind leg. Young man steer here coming in next, I think, is one that still has plenty of dimension just from a muscularity standpoint. I think a moderate type of steer, and I like those things about that calf. I think he might be just a touch softer maybe as you get your hands on him, perhaps in the steer directly in front of him. I think with that, though, a steer that needs to be just set down more comfortable in his rear leg usage, drop him down in his flank just a touch on an individual basis. The roan steer coming in next, a moderate, big-bodied steer. He's certainly mellow to the touch. I wished he complemented it with just a touch more muscle. I think a steer that gets a lot plainer, like to stouten him up, give him a shot more quality as we get off the side of him. We close out here with a young lady steer, that long-bodied, long-striding type of calf. Just need to see that one just offer more quality and more power to work that one up any higher. Another really good competitive class. Those of you ringside, help me in congratulating each of those exhibitors.
Your top 5 from class number 3 is going to shake out as follows from Dillon, Montana. Tag number 240 is going to be 5th. That is Kaz Schuett. 4th is going to go to Wilma Mavenkamp. Number 226 from Bliss, Idaho. 3rd is going to be Danny Warner. Number 246 from Worland, Wyoming. 2nd, tag number 229, Emma Mercer from Hyattville, Wyoming. And finishing at the top of the class, congratulations, the pride of Bliss, Idaho, number 227, Wyatt Mavenkamp. Let's welcome to the show ring, class number 4 now. The following tags, 224, 218, 219, 237, 213, 206, 236, and 228. And a shout out to Tri-State Livestock News and Farmer Rancher Exchange, a proven partner serving ranching and farming communities for 5 decades from Montana to Kansas and Colorado to Minnesota. Visit them at www.tsln.com. And don't forget, if you've got dear people that can't be here with us today but wish they were, give them a call on the phone and let them know they can go to YouTube and watch everything that's happening in the show ring right here at Superior Prod. You go to YouTube and then you put search Superior Prod, Prod. Otherwise, just tell them to go to liveauctions.tv. That's another way. But either way, if you are somewheres on planet Earth, you can be watching what's happening in the Magic City this weekend. couple of options for refreshments for you going on up at the Rimrock Rodeo Arena up at the Metro. The NILE Barbecue is happening right now. They've got El Wincho playing live music and some fantastic microbrews for you to sample. Or if you're a little more of the teetotaler type, over by the main entry right here, the coffee bar is open. They're going to be there for about another 45 minutes. So if you want something hot to drink, that would probably be your best option.
Really interesting class to kind of piece together, and I definitely think there's two good cattle that we end up with up here up top, and yet I still think there's a lot of good and quality that runs deep in this class. There's some good cattle down in 4 and 5, but ultimately the pair of cattle that we land on here in 1 and 2, a little bit different, I guess, in type and kind. The orange steer for me just looks a touch more just deeper in terms of his rib. He looks just a touch more like a fat steer, I guess, in terms of his body shape. I think a steer that reads maybe a touch square in regards to his hip and his hind leg. I'd like to change him in his chest, and I think in terms of his forerib shape, maybe a steer just gets a touch flatter on an individual basis, but I think that guy can really paint just a good image of quality. I think he's very compositionally correct, and it just looks like he just outmasses the steer that comes in second. Steer that comes in second, surprisingly, is just a touch more massive as you get in behind him. Maybe a smaller, lighter weight type steer, but I like how square and how big backed he is. I definitely think he's the thickest ended steer of the class, and I absolutely love those things about this steer. I think he opens up maybe in terms of his shoulder just ever so slightly. I think that steer gets a touch rounder in regards to his hip, and if we could just change his rear leg set into the ground, I think that would just help that steer's just look of quality as we get off the side of him. But I think a steer that gives you a good look when the young man can piece them together just as he gets out on the go, that I don't know that those pieces maybe fit together maybe quite as smooth. Young lady steer coming in next, really big-bodied black steer, heavyweight. This one's got just the look of a practical fat steer written all over him, especially maybe in comparison to the more expressively muscled steer that we have here in second. I think a steer, though, that as he gets out on the go, maybe just reads a touch just plainer from the side. You get right in behind that steer of that initial trio. He's by far and away the flattest through his lower quarter and stifle. I think a steer that just needs to be powered up in comparison to those two steers directly in front of him. Young man steer here coming in next. I think a more moderate black steer. I think a steer that has plenty of bone. He's got plenty of rib. I just don't know that that steer is just quite as just stout on an individual basis in comparison to some of those other cattle directly in front of him in this class. I think a steer gets a touch more general in the rear leg and how he gets out and go and how he utilizes it, but a nice type of practical steer there that the young man brings us. The blaze face steer coming in next, a really loose structure type of steer. I like how he just gets out on the go and just offers a really good set there to his hind leg. I guess a steer for me that just gives up some muscle and some shape. We get right in behind him. I think a steer that gets a lot flatter and plainer through his lower quarter. I think a steer that's set down maybe just a touch deeper in regards to his chest as well. A flatter bodied steer that we just need to power up. Young lady steer coming in next, a bolder ribbed steer that has more topside shape. Love those things about him. Get him out on the go. I think a steer that just gets too rigid in his rear leg. Need to loosen him up from a mobility standpoint. Young man coming in next, moderate baldy steer here that has plenty on him in terms of finish. Just a plainer profiling steer that we need to give just a touch more shape and expression right as we get in behind him. And then we close out with a really deep rib type of steer, one that's really mellow to the touch. Just would like to complement that with more muscularity and just a touch more structural integrity as well. But a really nice lineup of cattle. My congratulations to those exhibitors.
Again, another fantastic class right there. Here's your top five. Finishing in the number 5 position at tag number 228. That is Jonna McCullough of Fort Benton, Montana. Finishing in the number 4 position. Tag number 213. Justice Golding of Pine Bluffs, Wyoming. Finishing in the 3rd position from Strathmore, Alberta, tag number 224, J.C. Massey. Finishing at number 2 out of Fort Collins, Colorado, number 237, T.J. Rice. And congratulations to Sterling, Colorado's Bryce Hill, number 218, for finishing at the top of the class. Let's move down to the final grouping now. This is class number 5. We welcome tags number 232, 205, 222, 217, 220, and 214. Western Ranch Supplies, serving Big Sky Country with quality and service that you can trust. Stop into their brand new store located just off the Shiloh exit, a complete farm and ranch store from vet supplies to show supplies or from fencing to livestock, saddles and tack, and they've got a huge clothing department. Thank you, Rob Erickson, Keith Robinson, and Shane Vandevort. Stores in Billings and Great Falls. The Western Ag Reporter, serving the ag industry since 1940. They're proud to be instrumental in starting the NILE with publisher Pat Goggins, God rest his soul, holding the #1 charter. Stop by their booth up in the exhibit hall and sign up for your subscription. And last but not least, the Vegas Hotel, formerly the War Bonnet Inn, they're an official host, the NILE Stock Show. Banquet facilities, remodeled rooms, and soon to have a restaurante.
Well, as we close up here and finish our last class, I think just a really big-bodied, practical steer that leads off. I think that steer just offers a great look and balance as we get off the side of him, and yet I think a steer that's just ultra practical in regards to his look. I particularly like that he's just got a touch more on him in regards to his finish and composition. I think you get right in behind him. You'd like to change him probably in two areas. I think a steer that gets a touch flatter down through his lower quarter and stifle. I'd like to stouten him up perhaps in his bone work, but big-bodied, practical type of steer. He's a notch sounder than perhaps the one that comes right in behind him in second. The really fresh-fronted, good-looking steer comes in too. I think from his body up, that thing balances up really well. I think a steer that you like from that standpoint. He's got a touch more shape and expression as you get right in behind him. A touch harder hitting in his rear leg as he comes to the surface here, and I'd like to drop him down with just a touch more flank, but a really good-looking, nice type of steer there that the young lady brings us into. Young man's black and white steer here coming in next. I think a moderate, big bone type of steer. I think one that has plenty of body to him. Maybe a plainer profiling steer that gets a touch harder and his rear leg set back to the ground. I think a steer that in comparison to the duo in front of him just needs to be stoutened up on an individual basis, maybe just pieced together a little bit differently there from the side. The red steer that we have coming in next, young ladies steer, really nicely presented. I think a steer that can give you a decent look as you get off the side of him. I'd like to clean him up in his chest, and then as we get right in behind him, in comparison to those cattle directly in front of you, young lady, I think your steer just gets outmassed and outpowered on an individual basis. I'd like to give him just a touch more shape. A really fundamentally correct type of steer here that comes in next. He's really big-backed. He's really thick-ended. I think a steer that reads compositionally correct. It's just from a quality standpoint that keeps him where he is. I think a steer that's got a big, mature head on him. He's really thick and crusty about his neck. I don't know that steer just hits you with an abundance of quality, and because of those things, I think we've got to work him maybe down just a touch more. Young man's red steer that we close with, moderate, deep rib type of steer. I think a steer as we get in behind him just needs more muscularity. I think we need to loosen him up perhaps on his rear wheels as he gets out on the go, but a really good competitive class there as we finish up. My congratulations to each of those exhibitors.
How about a nice hand for our fantastic class right there? Your top five is going to look exactly like this. Finishing in the 5 position, number 217 of Sterling, Colorado, Braden Hill. At 4, it is going to be Huntley, Montana, 220. Brighton Lane. Finishing in 3rd, Garrett Bromanchek of Billings, Montana. He was number 205. 2nd, out of Ranchester, Wyoming, Casey Pierce, number 232. And finishing at the top of the class from Toston, Montana, Wade Leachman, number 222. We're going to go right to Champions Drive without any ado whatsoever. We'll welcome back to the Ford F-150 EcoBoost show ring the top finisher in each class. From the first class, we welcome Quentin Harwood. He is number 216 from Geyser, Montana. From class number 2, we welcome Cody Foley of Cheyenne, Wyoming. He was number 211. From class number 3, number 227, Wyatt Mavenkamp of Bliss, Idaho. From class number 4, Bryce Hill, number 218, Sterling, Colorado. And from the class we just looked at, class number 5, number 222, Wade Leachman, Toston, Montana. Welcome to Champions Drive and good luck.
Well, as we come to the conclusion of our show here, first of all, my congratulations goes out to these 5 class winners. As we started into that first class, it definitely, that steer came in, and even the second place steer behind him exceeded my probably expectations as to what we're going to see. This time of year, it's probably a little bit harder and a little bit more challenging to find fresh, youthful steers, and I was anticipating maybe some state fair holdovers. And so as we get out here into this lineup, as we work through the day, I've been really impressed with the quality that we've seen. I definitely think there's been some good ones in this lineup. I'm not going to go back through and talk them. I spent enough time in doing that. You guys have heard me in detail describe each of the cattle, and so I'm going to just save that time for maybe a couple more brief comments. Those of you that were ringside during the sheep show probably heard me say a couple of the same things, but it's not too often right now that you wake up in the morning, you flip open your phone, or you slide it open and see just a mass amount of either notifications of just things that have gone wrong in the world. And it seems like it's becoming a more common occurrence. It just seems like just between natural disasters and everything with the gun violence and just as a society, we have gotten so far away from decency and treating people with respect and courtesy. It just blows my mind. But it's so refreshing to come in here into a ring of people and to associate myself with a group of people that defy all of those things that I just talked about. Young people, you're so fortunate. You're so blessed to be involved in what I think is the greatest thing you can engage yourself in the world. I think what this activity teaches you young people outside of the realm of competitiveness and character, it's just teaching you how to be good people. And there's no doubt about it. My favorite place to be in the world is at a livestock show. And for me, that's where I feel the most normal. And so, young people, in saying that, I only envision things in this world continuing to get more hectic and more crazy. You guys are definitely the future. And I always preach that to the young people that I coached and that I worked with over my tenure at a junior college and at a senior college. But you young people really are. And keep doing what you're doing. You're going to continue to do big things in this life. You're going to make a big impact on the world. And so, from my perspective, I just want to congratulate you on that. I know you invested a lot of hard work and just commitment into these projects. And so, my compliments goes out to you guys and your families. Extremely well-ran show. Couldn't do it without the staff and the interns. And so, thank you guys for that. As we come to the conclusion, there's one standout winner for me. I'll go show you which one that is. A pretty confident winner in my mind. But those of you ringside, put your hands together for all these exhibitors. Tremendous job.
Well, Marcus has taken on an extraordinarily difficult task right here. I do want to let you know that your grand champion is going to get buckles, and also your reserve champions. You'll need to go over to the office to get fitted for jackets. So bear that in mind. Reserve champs, you'll need to go to the office, the livestock office, to get fitted for your trophy jacket. Your showmanship order is going to be beginner, junior, senior.
Well, as we finish up here and get you a reserve, I think things get a little bit more challenging. We'll start with that steer, that blaze face steer. They're out of our first class, a really good looking, really fresh type of steer. I think one that is pretty okay, I guess, in terms of weight, maybe even on the lighter side to today's standards at 1230, but I think a really fresh, really good looking steer. I think as we get him out on the move, maybe some small adjustments that you'd like to make in terms of a structural build, but I think that steer is sure enough nice. The young man steer that was out of our third class, he slid up into the second position, but I think just a fundamentally correct type of steer, needed to win that respective class, but I think a steer that maybe gives up some quality out here within this respective lineup. The steer that actually came out of the class that our champion did, the big-bodied yellow steer here, I think one that is extremely massive. I think a steer that's ultra big ribbed. He's got just a lot of body and a lot of dimension to him. He's ultra stout as you get him behind him. I'd maybe like to change the way his rear leg just set to the ground. I just wish that steer had just a more attractive yet functional set to his hock, but I think he's really big-bodied. He's compositionally correct, a nice type of steer. Steer that comes out of our fourth class, the orange steer here, I guess another one that could give you a good look. I think outside of his chest, that steer balances up pretty well. He's got an attractive hip and hind leg set. I think a steer that's maybe just a touch more marginal on the muscle side of things, and I wish that he had just a touch more back in him, but a deeper rib type of steer who's attractive and just has some good look about him. The steer that closes out the last class here, just a really big-bodied, practical steer. I think one that you appreciate here on the standstill. I guess as we get him behind him, I don't read him to be maybe overly dimensional back through his lower quarter. Maybe a steer that you'd like to give just a shot more bone, but really appreciate just the silhouette that he could paint and just a really big-bodied and practical kind. I guess for me, the two that it sorts down in between for reserve honors actually comes out of our first class and the steer that was in that second class. I think there's some trade-offs between that respective pair. A lot of things that I like about the young man steer. Ultra big back, a lot of good shape. Maybe just don't read him today. Maybe to be quite as big-bodied, quite as fresh. Wish this one maybe moved just a nickel better, but those are the two that I see it between. Young lady that was out of our second class there with the yellow steer is going to be reserved. Congratulations.
Deserved congratulations going to our top two finishers there in Champions Drive. Finishing in reserve, Lexi Dietz, number 210 from Shepherd, Montana. And your champion, Cody Foley, number 211 from Cheyenne, Wyoming. Congratulations, and congratulations to all of the showmen and showwomen that have partaken in the Junior Fed steer market thus far. We are not by no means anywhere near done. There's a lot of great showing yet to come this afternoon into this evening. And again, your order in the showmanship is going to be beginner. Then we'll move into junior showmanship and senior showmanship. And as the arena clears, we will welcome our beginner showmen and women. Number 204, 207, 208, 216, and 226. You can start making your way to the show ring, please.
I didn't, but I know they did.
They did, yes.
That guy.
There was an R in his name. I know I can't recall who won it, but I know they did do the shorthorn raffle. My best guess would maybe be check at the office or
Whoever that guy was
Where's
running
that
the
fellow?
Shorthorn show. The guy running the Shorthorn show.
there was a guy that was running the shorthorn show, had on a suit jacket, blue tie, I believe. I don't see him right now.
They were like white with purple stuff
You bet.
instead of purple. For those, I can't remember that name. Move the fence? Probably. We're supposed to start right away, but how long is it gonna take?
The beginner showman. Again, beginner showman, we need you to the ring right away, please. We're just finishing up some pictures, but we'll welcome tags 204, 207, 208, 216, and 226. Again, 204, 207, 208, 216, and 226. We welcome you to head on over to the Ford F-150 EcoBoost Show Arena.
Can you see right here? This strap from Senior Showmanship.
One important little tidbit of information that I stepped over top of. I want you to know that the reserve steer, the steer shown by Lexi Dietz, number 210 of Shepherd, Montana, going to win a $1,000 check. And Cody Foley of Cheyenne, Wyoming, with the champion steer. Congratulations, your check is going to be $2,000. The Lowline Futurity and Powerball Show? No, it's sale. Mine says that. That must not be right. I do want to let you know that tomorrow afternoon, the Junior Fed Sale of Champions is going to be taking place right across the way in the Pine Coulee Bulls Sale Arena. If you want to sign up so that you can bid online, so you can bid in the video auction, you can do so at liveauctions.tv. So bear that in mind. Might be the most productive thing you do all week. Again, liveauctions.tv if you want to sign up to bid online for tomorrow evening's Junior Fed Sale of Champions. Again, liveauctions.tv is the place to do it. efficiently. I say I need to try to kick through this last little chunk here pretty quickly. I have a curfew, you know. All right, we're going to move right into the showmanship. Going to move right into the showmanship portion of our show this afternoon. Well, welcome to the Ford EcoBoost Show Arena. 204 207 208 216 and 226. Junior Showman, we need you to get ready, please. We've got you in the on-deck circle. It's going to be 206, 212, 217, 228, 238, and 239. That's going to be the first of two classes in the Junior Showmanship. Please be ready.
Well, as we get started here in our showmanship competition, four young men that are doing a really nice job. I think Cattle still wanting to maybe act just a little bit dispositional, especially the one here on the end, and maybe getting a little bit harder for the young man to kind of slow him down, but he's doing a really nice job. Nonetheless, I think a good group of showmen, especially in this younger beginner age group, fundamentally they're doing a lot of things really correct. I think it's just a matter of small personal preferences that make a closer decision maybe between 2 and 3, but I think there's a young man within this lineup that stands out. He's doing a really exceptional job. Young man right here that's second in the lineup there, that blaze-faced here. He's going to be our champion beginner showman. Congratulations to you, bud. You're doing a really good job. For reserve honors, I think things get a little bit closer maybe between the young man up front and the young man in behind him. There's trade-offs between both of those young men. I think there's times that you might could navigate to one or the other. For me, the one I think that consistently just continues to try to get their animal in the right position, always working the stick, may not be the most assertive of where I'm at in the ring all the time, but he's working hard at it. Young man right in behind him, he's going to be our reserve champion showman. If you would, put your hands together for all four of these young men. Great job.
Congratulations to Wyatt Mabenkamp right there, your reserve champion, and the champion junior showman, beginner showman, Quentin Harwood, number 216 from Geyser, Montana. Fantastic work, gentlemen. Well done. Junior showman, we are going to combine both classes into one. There's been a number of scratches. So junior showman, we are combining both classes into one. Please report to the Ford F-150 EcoBoost show ring ASAP. All right, here is your junior showmanship division. We're combining the two classes into one, so it's going to be a big one. But we've got the right man for the job, and Marcus So. Numbers 206, 212, 217, 228, 238, 220, 225, 237, and 244. Welcome. We do have two classes in the senior showmanship, so we're going to get on deck right away. The first class of that division, and that is tags 210, 221, 223, 224, 232, 236, 242, 246, and 248. I'm going to run through those again quickly. 210, 221, 223, 224, 232, 236, 242, 246, and 248. We need you to the on-deck circle, please. 232 is a scratch. We had some keys turned in at the office. Looks like a Dodge Ram. Fairly new truck. If you're missing a set of keys, come to the livestock office. Again, a fairly new set of Dodge Ram pickup keys found. If you're missing them, go to the livestock office, describe them, and you can get them back.
Well, as we start to work through these junior showmen, a bigger group as they all come in into one heat, but that's fine. I think all of them are doing an outstanding job. They utilize the ring relatively well, and a lot of times with these younger showmen in an awkward, maybe sized ring like this that's not maybe longer than it is wide, I think a lot of times you have some issues with spacing, and I'm really impressed you young people do a nice job of utilizing the ring. I think even within that, a good group of showmen, just as a whole. For me, though, it really kind of comes down to probably two or three that I think stand out within this respective group, and yet even amongst that, I still think there's a standout within that. And so a really just a stout group of showmen, especially up top. Two competitors that are doing a really nice job. With that being said, as a whole, my congratulations to you, young people. You've done a great job today. Your champion junior showman is going to be the young lady here standing in front of me with the baldy or the brockle-faced steer. She does a really nice job. I think there's another person that is really similar in the way that they present their animal in terms of their showmanship ability and just getting that animal stuck and presented. Young lady here with the red steer. That one's going to be your reserve champion. Congratulations.
Congratulations to your reserve champion showman, Brighton Lane, number 220 out of Huntley, Montana, and your champion showman, John McCullough, number 228 from Fort Benton. Congratulations. And again, an absolutely fantastic group of young people right there. And I think that it goes without saying that many, if not all of us, are in complete agreement with Marcus and that talk that he gave just a little while ago about the current state of our union and the future thereof. These young men and women are what is right in the world today. Let's go to class number 1 of our senior division. We welcome to the show ring number 210, number 221, number 223, and 224, 236, 242, 246, and 248. Again, this is class number 1 of the senior showmanship division.
As we get started in this first heat of our senior showmanship competition, I'm going to ask these two young ladies to come back for our final drive. Again, that's not to take away from the work and the effort that you young people have put into your projects here. I think you're doing a really nice job. Maybe just some small things, just position-wise. Maybe just like for you to maybe move around and get in the right placement for yourself, and then just set the feet and legs up. Maybe just a touch square, maybe a touch better at times. Legs could be a little bit stretched out. Like to set them up and fix them maybe just a touch. But I think as a whole, a really competitive and a really good group of young ladies. My congratulations goes out to each and every one of you. If you would, ringside, put your hands together for this first heat of Senior Showman.
Go figure. Which one was which, or we don't know yet. We just pick the top two there. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, just the top. Yeah.
Your top two right there. Number 221, Abby Leachman of Toston, Montana. And number 210, Lexi Dietz of Shepherd, Montana. And as Marcus finishes up with these young ladies, we will thank them for being here and we'll welcome our final class. Our final class in the division, that is number 205, 209, 213, 214, 218, 219, 222, and 229.
As we finish up with our last group of senior showmen, another really tough and competitive lineup, we're going to ask these two young men to come back for our final drive. But again, my compliments to you young people over here. You do a really nice job. I think as the day wears on, maybe these cattle wanting to get just a touch more on the lazy side and tired side, and because of that, it gets a little bit more challenging to piece them together at times. And so I know the struggle. It's a longer day, and as we get to the conclusion of it, maybe those cattle aren't wanting to set up for you, and you have to work really hard here towards the end to keep them pieced together, and maybe overwork your stick a little bit to get them presented the way that you want. But just some small things that I think you could have improved on just as a whole, but really, really competitive group. Again, those of you ringside, help me in congratulating all these young people. Really nice job.
Congratulations to your top two finishers in that subclass. Justice Golding of Pine Bluffs, Wyoming. He's number 213 and number 222. Wade Leachman of Toston, Montana. And now for the selection of our reserve and our champion senior showman, we welcome back to the Ford F-150 EcoBoost show ring, number 210, Lexi Dietz, and number 221, Abby Leachman.
Well, as we come to a conclusion of the day here in our senior showmanship competition, the 4 young people that we have out here doing an outstanding job. As we get to this final drive, both the young men up front, the young ladies have elevated themselves to another level. I think of just competition, and that's why they're out here. Really, really close and really competitive. And again, my compliments goes out to the 4 of you. I think any given day, maybe a different judge could come in and do things a little bit differently. But for me, I think it's really important at this stage, as you pull those cattle into a profile and you go to get them set up, the quicker that you could do it and the more natural you are in doing it, and just pulling those cattle into place, I think is almost a necessity. You should really minimize the number of times that you have to use your stick, and for me, those things are really important at this level. There's 2 people that I think do a really nice job of that, and for me, those 2 really stand out amongst this group. Again, they do a really good job when they first came in the ring in class, and they continue to do a good job while they're out here in this final drive. All 4 of you are doing a stand-up job. Again, my compliments and congratulations goes out to each of you. Your champion today is going to be the young man up in the front. The young man behind him is going to be reserve. If you would, put your hands together for all 4 of them. Congratulations.
Congratulations to your reserve champion, Justice Golding of Pine Bluffs, Wyoming. And congratulations to your senior showmanship champion, Wade Leachman, Toston, Montana. Beautifully done, beautifully done. Well, showmen and showwomen, that brings us to the conclusion of our Sunday at the NILE 2017. It is our 50th anniversary, and we are going to be celebrating all week long. We're coming back tomorrow morning on October 16th. We're going to kick it off right here at 8 o'clock. We'll have the Simmental Show, the Junior, then the Open. So we'll look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow morning. God bless each and every one of you. Have a great night tonight. Enjoy some of the Niles, some of the Magic City, some of Billings, Montana. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.